All right, so get ready because we are diving deep today into this wild legal situation, and it all revolves around Jay-Z. Lawsuits, accusations, plot twist, you name it, we've got it all.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case for sure. You start with this lawsuit that comes out of nowhere with some really serious accusations, and then bam, it's suddenly dropped. And now Jay-Z is hitting back with a lawsuit of his own.
It's crazy, right? Like late last year, this lawsuit pops up accusing Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter, by the way, and Sean Diddy Combs of a really shocking crime. It allegedly happened way back in 2000 at an MTV VMAs after party.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're talking about an alleged attack on a 13-year-old girl.
I mean, you can't just ignore something that serious, especially given, the age of the alleged victim. No wonder this whole thing blew up in the media.
And get this, the timing, according to Jay-Z, couldn't have been worse. The lawsuit landed right before the London premiere of Mufasa, the Lion King prequel, with Beyoncé and their daughter Blue Ivy. Can you imagine the pressure?
Oh, yeah, I bet. So Jay-Z is saying he was basically forced to choose between being there to support his family at this huge event or trying to manage this PR nightmare.
Exactly. Tough spot, right?
Yeah, really tough.
And it gets even wilder. Jay-Z claims he and Beyoncé started getting death threats because of this lawsuit. Some of the messages were really scary.
Oh, wow.
Like one said, "I can't wait until you join Combs in prison, then later in hell."
That's intense.
Ugh.
I guess it really shows you the dark side of fame, right? Like, once an accusation is out there, whether it's true or not, it takes on a life of its own online, and things can get really scary.
Totally. But Jay-Z wasn't about to just sit back and take it. He came out swinging, denied all the allegations, called the lawsuit frivolous, fictitious, and appalling. And now he's countersuing the accuser's attorney, Tony Buzbee.
Okay, so what's his argument there?
Well, he's claiming Buzbee has this history of targeting celebrities, kind of like using lawsuits as a way to force them into settlements.
That's interesting. So is he saying Buzbee knew exactly what he was doing? That he was trying to capitalize on this Mufasa premiere?
That's what Jay-Z is suggesting. It's like he's saying Buzbee used this lawsuit as a pressure tactic.
I see.
And here's the thing. There's more. Jay-Z says Buzbee also sent him demand letters about this case, but also about a separate incident from back in 2015. It's starting to feel like there's a whole lot more to this story than we know.
Yeah, definitely makes you wonder what Buzbee's true motives are.
Right. So to be clear, the lawsuit against Jay-Z has been dismissed, but Diddy is still facing over 36 outstanding cases from the same lawyer, Tony Buzbee, and they're all based on similar accusations.
Wow, over 36.
Yeah.
So is Diddy saying anything about these accusations?
Yep, just like Jay-Z, he's denying everything. His lawyer has even come out and criticized Buzbee, basically saying he's more interested in making headlines than actually pursuing real claims. Now, let's talk about the accuser in this initial lawsuit against Jay-Z. What's her story?
Well, according to her lawsuit, she was 13 at the time this all supposedly went down. She claims a limo driver, someone connected to Diddy, lured her to this after party. Her description of what happened is pretty disturbing. Mentions drug use, assault, even another female celebrity being there, though she doesn't name her.
That's heavy. But in the lawsuit, she chose to stay anonymous. They just call her Jane Doe. Why wouldn't she come forward with her real name?
That's exactly what Jay-Z's legal team was arguing. They said it was unfair for him to defend himself against someone who's hiding behind anonymity, especially given the serious nature of the accusations. They even suggested that if she wanted to proceed with the case, she should use her real name.
And don't forget, Jay-Z and his lawyer, Alex Spiro, are claiming this whole thing was just a way to get money from Jay-Z, retaliate against the rare target who would not pay. That's how they put it.
So they're saying Buzbee figured Jay-Z would rather just pay up than deal with all this bad press.
Exactly. Now, before we get into why the accuser decided to drop the lawsuit, I got to point out something that I found kind of interesting. This alleged incident happened back in 2000, the same year Jay-Z and Beyoncé supposedly started dating.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And from what Beyoncé has said in interviews, she and Jay-Z were just friends for like a year and a half before they actually became a couple.
So you're saying there's a chance they weren't even romantically involved yet when this alleged incident with the accuser took place?
Well, yeah, that's what makes you think, right?
Definitely a coincidence.
Yeah.
But, of course, we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
For sure. But it adds another layer of intrigue to this already complicated situation. Okay, so let's dig into what led to this lawsuit being dropped.
Well, it seems like things started to unravel for the accuser. Remember Jay-Z's legal team. They were really pushing for the case to be dismissed or for Jane Doe to reveal her identity.
Basically saying, if you're going to make these accusations, you got to stand behind them publicly.
Exactly. They argued it was unfair for Jay-Z to be defending himself against someone anonymous, especially with accusations this serious.
And then on top of that, Jay-Z's lawyers started finding inconsistencies in the accuser's story.
Oh, so they started raising doubts about the details.
Exactly. And you combine that with their super aggressive legal strategy, it seems like it put a lot of pressure on the accuser.
Makes sense. So what happened? Did she end up revealing her identity?
Nope. She dropped the whole lawsuit.
Really? Just like that?
Yeah, completely dismissed the case. And she didn't get any settlement from Jay-Z.
Wow, that's a pretty big turn of events. What do you think made her do that?
It's hard to say for sure, but the pressure from Jay-Z's lawyers must have been intense. Plus, think about the public scrutiny if her name came out. It's a tough situation.
No doubt. And it really shows how complicated these cases can be, especially when you have someone famous involved. It's a recipe for a media frenzy.
Totally. So what about Diddy? He's still facing all those other lawsuits from the same lawyer, right?
Yeah, that's right. What happened with Jay-Z doesn't affect those cases against Diddy at all. He's still got those accusations from multiple people hanging over his head, all represented by Tony Buzbee.
And just to reiterate, Diddy maintains his innocence and his legal team's ready to fight.
Right, and it's important to remember he deserves the same due process as anyone else, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. These are serious allegations that need to be thoroughly investigated and addressed through the legal system, not just in the court of public opinion.
Okay, so let's take a second to recap everything we know up to this point. We start with this bombshell lawsuit against Jay-Z, super serious accusation, then poof, dismissed by the accuser. Now Jay-Z is going after the lawyer who filed the original lawsuit, saying it was all about extortion. And then we have Diddy still fighting similar accusations from other people, all represented by the same lawyer, this Tony Buzbee. And both Jay-Z and Diddy are saying, we didn't do anything wrong.
It's a lot to keep track of. It really shows how complicated things can get, and it definitely sparks important conversations about the legal system, due process, media influence, and even the potential for things to be manipulated.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, remember that detail about the timeline of Jay-Z and Beyoncé's relationship?
Oh, yeah. You mean how the timing of this alleged incident from 2000 lines up with when they first started dating?
Exactly. Beyoncé has said they were friends for about a year and a half before they got romantic, which puts the start of the relationship somewhere between late 1999 and mid-2000.
You're right. That timing is definitely interesting,
Yeah.
especially considering the accusations.
It makes you think, doesn't it? But like we said before, we got to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
For sure. We're all about exploring different angles and unpacking facts, but we're not here to spread rumors.
Definitely. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into this whole Jay-Z lawsuit saga, what are your final thoughts?
I think it really highlights how we need to approach serious accusations carefully. We need to support victims and make sure their voices are heard. But we also can't forget about the presumption of innocence and the right to due process. Finding that balance is so important.
It's a delicate balance, and this case shows just how tricky it can be to navigate those complex situations. Yeah, it's a lot to process, and the lawsuit's over, but it feels like there's still so much hanging in the air.
That's the thing with these high-profile cases. Even if the legal battle is done, the impact, it lingers. Reputations get tarnished, relationships can be strained, and the emotional toll, well, it's real.
Absolutely. And Jay-Z has talked about that emotional toll, how this whole ordeal has been so difficult, especially for his family. His kids are old enough now to understand what's going on, maybe even hearing things from their friends. It's got to be tough.
It really drives home the point that these situations aren't just legal battles. They're real-life stories with consequences that reach far beyond the courtroom. We have to think about the human impact on everyone involved.
For sure. And this whole thing raises some really important questions, like, was the lawsuit about justice or about using the legal system to gain leverage? What do you think?
What's a valid question, isn't it? I mean, the legal system is there to hold people accountable, but there's a line between pursuing legitimate claims and maybe using the law for personal gain. It's a tricky issue.
Absolutely. This whole case really highlights the importance of critical thinking, not just taking headlines at face value, looking at things from different angles, being cautious about rushing to judgment. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's crucial, especially nowadays. We're bombarded with information from all sides. So being a discerning consumer of information, questioning assumptions, seeking out diverse perspectives, is more important than ever.
Totally agree. So we end up with all these unanswered questions. Did something actually happen back in 2000? What was the accuser really after? Was this, like Jay-Z says, a money grab? I mean, what do you make of it all?
It's hard to say for certain, but I think what we can take away from this is a deeper understanding of how these power dynamics work between celebrities and their accusers, the potential for manipulation within the legal system, and how accusations, even if they're not proven, can leave a lasting impact.
It's a crazy story, and who knows, maybe there's more to come. But for now, it definitely gives us all a lot to think about.
And that's not a bad thing. Even without a clear-cut resolution, this case offers a chance for reflection, to really examine the legal system, how the media shapes narratives, and our own responsibility as consumers of information.
Absolutely food for thought. And to all of you listening, we encourage you to keep exploring these issues, to seek out different perspectives, and to have those tough conversations. It's how we grow and learn.
Truth and fairness, they're ongoing pursuits, and each of us has a role to play.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. In a time when accusations can spread online like wildfire, how do we balance protecting victims while also guarding against the potential damage of false claims?
That's a question worth considering. It's complex, no easy answers, but it's a conversation we all need to be a part of.